Chapter 271 Protect Grandpa Xiao. And there are a few little military dogs, also injured. When Xiao Moyan spoke, a sad expression appeared on his face. But I saw a few military dogs, looking like eggplants. Do they also have wolf blood? Xiao Moyan was puzzled, but he didn't ask today. In fact, those military dogs, I think they are the offspring of eggplants. Meng Xiai explained. Then Meng Xiai talked about 2 years ago, when eggplants bred several military dogs. In fact, Meng Xiai and Shen Ke went to see the military dogs after they gave birth, and took a lot of meat each time. However, later, as the military dogs grew older, they saw less. Moreover, these pups had to be trained from a young age and trained to be military dogs. And it was not possible for Meng Xiai to see them whenever he wanted. Therefore, he saw less later. Xiao Moyan heard this, and his eyes widened. He did not expect that Eggplant had such a glorious history. But thinking about Eggplant's tall and mighty appearance, it was indeed a good seedling. Xiao Moyan likes small animals. Now that he knows that the little military dogs are the offspring of Eggplant, he will be better to them in the future. After all, Eggplant is one of us, and its offspring are naturally one of us. Meng Xiai didn't know what Xiao Moyan was thinking. After hesitating for a while, he said carefully, "Actually, I came here this time to ask you something. Uncle Xiao, what do you think of Captain Lu? To be honest, Lu Chen has good looks and abilities, and is indeed worthy of Xiao Moyan. But most soldiers are outspoken. Meng Xiai is afraid that Lu Chen will speak rashly, and cause Xiao Moyan to panic. If Xiao Moyan didn't have that kind of idea about Lu Chen, and Lu Chen was too enthusiastic, what should we do?" Xiao Moyan heard Meng Xiai ask about Lu Chen, and immediately counted on his fingers to talk about Lu Chen's good points. Captain Lu is kind to others, cares about military dogs, and has strong working ability. Meng Xiai heard these compliments and doubted whether Uncle Xiao had fallen in love with him without knowing it. After returning, Zhao Jingyu was relieved to see that Xiao Moyan was not injured. When he saw the fish in his hand, his eyes lit up. "Uncle Xiao, I want to eat braised fish." "Okay." Then Zhao Jingyu couldn't wait to follow Xiao Moyan into the kitchen. Then Meng Xiai saw Liang Xiao's face become not so good. Oh my god, Zhao Jingyu won't change his mind. If it's really because of Uncle Xiao that Uncle Liang and Zhao Jingyu are separated, then he will feel guilty. "Uncle Liang, Zhao Jingyu he," Meng Xiai whispered. Liang Xiao seemed to know what Meng Xiai was going to say, so he shook his head. "No. Jingyu he seems to want to recognize Xiao Moyan as his father." As soon as Liang Xiao opened his mouth, he was shocked. Meng Xiai was speechless. Zhao Jingyu is 22 years old this year, and Uncle Xiao is 33 years old. Although there is an age gap, it is not to the extent of recognizing him as a father. What does Zhao Jingyu think? Meng Xiai was shocked. But he was puzzled. Liang Xiao took off his gold-rimmed glasses, pinched his nose with a tired look, and sighed before continuing. Because Jingyu feels that Xiao Moyan treats him very well, and makes him feel the fatherly love he has missed for a long time. Of course, Zhao Jingyu only said this when he was alone with Liang Xiao, and did not really tell Xiao Moyan. If he really told Xiao Moyan, he would probably be scared to death. A child 11 years younger than him calling him dad. How could it not be scary? Liang Xiao was also troubled by another thing. That is, Zhao Jingyu tried to make him call Xiao Moyan uncle. This made Liang Xiao very speechless. After all, he was only 1 year younger than Xiao Moyan. Why should he call him uncle? Liang Xiao felt that this world was really crazy. After hearing Liang Xiao's complaints, Meng Xiai showed a helpless expression on his face. I don't know why. Although I sympathize with Liang Xiao, I want to laugh. Perhaps it was because this situation was too absurd. However, since Xiao Moyan did not affect the relationship between the two of them, then everything was fine. So, Meng Xiai decided not to dwell on this matter anymore, but to shift his attention to other aspects. After dinner, the two returned home. Shen Ke looked at Meng Xi's worried face, and felt a little sorry. He gently held Meng Xi's hand, and comforted him. Don't worry, Captain Lu is not a person who doesn't know the importance of things. Uncle Xiao looks gentle on the outside, but he is very strong on the inside. Otherwise, he would have been like those people in the M City base, tortured to the point of going crazy, and would not be as lively as he is now. Although Captain Lu looks careless, he has climbed to the rank of captain at such a young age, and has 1 foot in the rank of major. He will definitely not be so impulsive. So shall see I. Don't worry. Shin-Kei comforted. Meng Xiai nodded, thinking that Xiao Moyan's condition today was indeed okay. And he breathed a sigh of relief. But thinking that Xiao Moyan would have to go to the military area every day to treat those military dogs, it was a long way, and he would have to bring some food every time he came back. What if he encountered danger? But Meng Xiai was too lazy to go out, so he gave the important task of protecting Xiao Moyan to Chiazi and Xiaoying. Ketzi, Xiaoying, you two go out every day with your grandpa Xiao, and protect him well. Do you understand? Awoo, awoo. Woof woof woof. Got it. The next morning, Meng Xiai opened the door, and let the two sons go out. At Zhao Jingyu's house, Xiao Moyan was about to go out. But he saw Eggplant and Eagle waiting there with their tails wagging. Why are you here? Xiao Moyan touched the two, took them home, and fed them 2 strips of beef jerky. Xiao Moyan's cooking skills were very good, and the two couldn't wait to feed them, and ate them up. When they saw Xiao Moyan go out, the two hurriedly followed him. Xiao Moyan was smart, and when he saw the two like this, he realized that Meng Xiai had called them to protect him, and a warm feeling flowed through his heart. Arriving at the military district, some soldiers were very excited to see Xiaoying. After all, this was their former teammate. After the training, 1 or 2 of them gathered together and talked to Xiaoying. Xiaoying, do you still remember me? I used to feed you meat. Xiaoying, Xiaoying, can I touch you? Xiaoying was naturally familiar with several people, so he let them touch him. When Eggplant saw his wife being touched by so many people, he was not happy. He squeezed through the crowd and shouted twice to scare them away. Eggplant knew they were good people and would not hurt the eagle, so he did not shout fiercely. Then Eggplant was pressed and rubbed by these people. Awoo! Awoo! Eggplant could not believe what he had experienced, and his eyes widened. How could he, a majestic and ferocious wolf, be touched by these people? However, these soldiers did not give him a chance to refuse, and they grabbed him and rubbed him. Awoo! Awoo! No! Let go! Chapter 272 Insect Plague, entering various places in the house. Shin-Kei, have you noticed that Eggplant is not in good spirits these 2 days? On this day, Eggplant and Xiaoying came back from going out, and they huddled together in their nests, seemingly not as energetic as before. And Eggplant usually came back, but always pestered Xiaoying. Could it be that these two also experienced some kind of 7-year itch? But in fact, the reason why the two were so tired was largely because they were rubbed by the group of soldiers after sending Xiao Moyan to the military district. Eggplant sighed and said that being rubbed for a day was more tiring than going out to kill a few zombies. After knowing Meng Xi's thoughts, Shin-Kei sighed deeply. He had been struggling for survival before, and now he was free, and he couldn't adapt for a while, so he could understand all kinds of random thoughts. So he pulled Meng Xiai to do something to keep him busy. Of course, Meng Xiai and Shin-Kei did not forget to continue to take soil outside. After 5 days in a row, Meng Xiai and his friends stopped, and then continued to mess around at home. Zishan base originally had only more than 500,000 residents. Despite a wave of zombies, because the authorities had already made full preparations, the total number of casualties among superpowers and ordinary people was less than 100,000, so there are still about 400,000 residents in Zishan. These residents deeply realized that the safety inside the base was much higher than the outside world, so they decided to stay in the base. In order to meet the growing housing demand, the authorities reused the previously planned villa area. Since no one bought land to build houses, and in order to provide employment opportunities for residents, they began to build buildings in the villa area. Those old craftsmen who are good at firing bricks, bricklayers and construction workers have become popular figures in the base. Buildings that once stood but now collapsed have become places frequented by scavengers. They collect discarded steel bars and intact bricks and stones, which are essential for house construction. At the same time, the authorities actively organized many supernatural people to go out and collect various useful items, especially various mechanical equipment. Half a year later, the farmland has evolved from the initial hoe to the current mechanization, and sowing does not require people. With professional equipment, the daily output of bricks is better than before. Building houses is no longer limited to the base, but is centered on the base, with various infrastructure outside the base. The living space is getting more and more spacious, and it is thriving. On this day, Meng Xiai yawned as he walked down from the second floor. Shin-Kei, if we can rebuild the house, Let's move to another place. When we built the house, we built it smaller to avoid attracting other people's attention. Now that we can rebuild the house, we have to change it. Okay. Shinkei agreed. Fuck. Eggplant, what the hell are you holding? Before Shinkei finished speaking, Ming Ci, who had already gone downstairs, was frightened when he saw what was under Eggplant's claws. Seeing Ming Ci's big reaction, Shinkei hurried down and stood in front of Ming Ci. What's wrong? Looking at Eggplant, he saw a beetle as big as a cup under its claws. Eggplant heard the voice of its owner, and stood up from its crouching, but did not let go of the beetle under his claws. Eggplant, get it out, Shinkei shouted. Awuh! Awuh! Eggplant didn't want to. It hadn't had enough fun. The eagle on the side saw that this guy was stubborn, and stepped forward and barked twice, asking Eggplant to get the insect out. Awuh! Eggplant felt wronged, but didn't say anything. The wife ordered, and it had to do it, and then used its claws to push the insect all the way out. Seeing the insect leave, Ming Ci felt relieved. Ming Ci was not afraid of insects, but it was frightening to suddenly see such a big insect. They got up late in the morning, so they didn't plan to cook. Ming Ci took 2 bowls of tofu pudding, 2 grain pancakes, and 2 tofu and scallion dumplings from the space. Eggplant and the eagle hadn't come back yet, so he didn't rush to feed them. Fuck. Ming Ci grabbed the spoon with one hand, looking at his bowl, and felt that he was very unlucky today. There were only about 20 servings of tofu pudding left in the space. And now, he finally took out 2 bowls. But he didn't expect a thumb-sized bug to fall from the ceiling. Looking up, I found that there were 20 or 30 bugs crawling on the ceiling. Seeing that a bug was about to fall, Ming Ci put all the food on the table into the space without thinking. Fortunately, there were a lot of insecticides stored in the space, which could be used. Squeak! Ming Ci took out 2 sets of protective clothing from the space. And then he and Shinkei each took 2 bottles of insecticide and sprayed them on the ceiling. Bang bang bang. The bugs on the ceiling fell down in a rush, in order to prevent any fish from slipping through the net in the house. Ming Ci and Shinkei checked everywhere in the house. It doesn't matter if you look at it. There are countless bugs under the sofa, behind the curtains, and behind various shelves. Is this causing an insect plague? Ming Ci took out 2 more bottles of insecticide from the space, and then sprayed them on every corner. Shinkei's eyes went dark, because he had died at this time in his previous life, so he naturally didn't know what was going on. After finally eliminating all the bugs in the house, the 2 of them planned to go out and get some fresh air. After the bugs died, they would come back to clean up the dead bodies. As a result, as soon as they left the yard, they were frightened by the scene in front of them. The dense insects on the ground were climbing up the walls and trees. And on the ground where there were no insects at present, there were dark insects climbing up from the ground. Many insects had already climbed up the walls and windows. The dense scene was really creepy. Ming Ci and Shinkei did not dare to hesitate, and hurriedly held their breath and returned to the house. They carefully checked all the windows upstairs and downstairs, and closed the doors and windows tightly. However, in such a short time, a lot of bugs appeared in the house again. Squeak! The 2 picked up the insecticide again and sprayed it at the bugs. They didn't dare to go out until they killed them all. Fortunately, when the house was built, the doors and windows were well treated, so there was no need to worry about the bugs entering the house again. Then, they opened the gate of the yard, and the scene in front of them surprised them. The eggplant was rolling happily in the pile of bugs, while the eagle stood quietly on a pile of bricks and stones, vigilantly observing the surroundings. As long as any insect dared to come up, the eagle would step on it to death. The dirt road outside was densely covered with insects of various shapes and sizes, from centipedes to cockroaches, grasshoppers, and other strange insects that had never been seen before, all crawling out from the ground, and then scattered in all directions. Seeing that some insects were about to enter the yard, Shinkei quickly released his fire ability to block them outside. Chapter 273 Shinkei, what happened to the eagle? Ah, why are there so many bugs outside? Not far away, Zheng Yan opened the door and came out. After seeing the densely packed bugs on the ground, he jumped directly on Lin Jun's back out of fear. Lin Jun, what should I do? Zheng Yan shouted. And Lin Jun, with no change on his face, held Zheng Yan with one hand, and used his supernatural power with the other hand to drive away the bugs around them. After seeing Ming Ci and the others, Zheng Yan waved from a distance. Brother, brother. What should we do with so many bugs? Lin Jun used his supernatural power while walking to Meng Xiai and his friends. And on Meng Xi's side, Shen Ke had been using his supernatural power to burn these bugs to prevent them from climbing up their house. These bugs were smarter, and after knowing that Meng Xiai and his friends were in danger, they took a detour. When Eggplant and Eagle saw their master coming out, they also ran to them. Brother, why are there so many bugs all of a sudden? Zheng Yan was carried by Lin Jun to the door of Meng Xiai and his friends, and then he got off his back. Meng Xiai shook his head. I don't know. When he read it, the author of the novel only updated the story to the point where the herbs were found. And he didn't know the story development afterwards. Seeing that his elder brother didn't know, Zheng Yan could only hold Lin Jun's arm tightly. If the bugs didn't disappear for a lifetime, would he have to let the elder brother carry him when he went out? Woo! Bro, you don't know. I woke up this morning, and there were a lot of bugs crawling on my body. Woo! Zheng Yan and Lin Jun lived in a relatively simple place, and the quality of the doors and windows was far inferior to that of Meng Xi's house. 2 windows were forgotten to be closed when they went to bed last night. This gave the bugs an opportunity to crawl into the house through the doors and windows. Zheng Yan was sleeping soundly when he suddenly felt something crawling slowly across his face. At first, he thought Lin Jun was playing a prank, so he reached out and slapped him without hesitation. However, when his palm fell, he did not touch Lin Jun's hand, but felt a wet touch. At this time, Zheng Yan realized that something was wrong. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw that his hands were covered with bright red blood. Instantly, his mind was completely clear. At this moment, he felt something crawling on his body. He sat up hurriedly and looked around. The scene in front of him made him shudder. All kinds of strange insects were crawling around in the house. Ah! Zheng Yan screamed, waking up Lin Jun. After seeing the insects, Lin Jun quickly grabbed his clothes and carried Zheng Yan downstairs. The two thought that there was food in the house, so they attracted the insects. But they didn't want to go out of the house and see more insects. When you go back, you can get the ash out and scatter it everywhere. It can help drive away the insects, Meng Xiai suggested. At this time, most people use wood stoves at home, and a few use electricity to cook, so there is a lot of ash. Okay, Lin Jun agreed. Zheng Yan and his family have a lot of things at home, most of which are used for reselling. If they don't go back and deal with them in time, they may be eaten by insects, and the loss will be heavy. Therefore, he had to say goodbye to Meng Xiai and others and hurried back home. At this moment, not only the Xishan wild base, but also all parts of the world have suffered from serious insect disasters. These insects are like ants passing through, crawling densely on the ground. Some even drill into the human body through the ears, noses and other parts, and ruthlessly eat people's brains and internal organs. Others ran into the granaries where humans stored food, and wherever they went, all the food was swept away. Fortunately, the granary of the Xishan wild base was particularly strong when it was built, and the internal structure was very solid, so these insects could not enter it. However, the crops that had been carefully cultivated for half a year were destroyed, and 1/3 of the herbs originally used to develop vaccines were also destroyed. The residents of the Xishan base had always been full of hope for the future, but when they learned the news, they felt extremely desperate, and one by one they became passive and lazy, thinking that they had lost hope of survival. Faced with such a situation, the authorities did not give up, but took quick action to organize all residents to kill the insects and protect the remaining herbs. At the same time, they also actively carried out replanting work and worked hard to restore agricultural production. These insects have been active on the ground, because there are too many of them, and there is no suitable medicine now. They can only be eliminated by psychics. Fire psychics and lightning psychics are the main force. It took 10 days in a row before the insects were almost eliminated. Perhaps it was because they had experienced too many times that they thought hope had come. But in fact, it was a more desperate natural disaster. So after the passive slacking, one by one they cheered up again. It was already so bad. It couldn't be worse. Meng Xiai and Shen Ke have been killing all kinds of bugs at home these days, and have not gone out. They have also found several nests of insect eggs. They dare not imagine what their house will look like if these eggs are hatched. Afraid that there are still bugs in the house, Meng Xiai thought about it, and suddenly thought that as long as he is not in the space, the living things will be kicked out. So Meng Ci directly put the sofa, dining table and other things into the space. But after a while, a lot of living bugs appeared out of thin air. Meng Ci and Shen Ke, holding insecticides, quickly sprayed them at the bugs. Swish! White mist sprayed out from the nozzle, filling the air and emitting a pungent smell. After being covered by the spray, the bugs twitched and fell to the ground. The two continued to spray insecticides, killing the bugs one by one. After a while, a thick layer of bug corpses piled up on the ground. The door was opened. An eggplant and eagle walked in. As soon as they reached the door, Meng Ci closed the door, and then took Shen Ke, eggplant, and eagle into the space. Then he grabbed the eggplant and the eagle, and traced them from head to tail. As expected, he found 2 bugs. After killing the bugs, he disinfected them with alcohol and other things. Then the 2 people, the wolf and the dog, left the space. After putting the furniture in place, the house returned to its previous state. For lunch, he took the ready-made food from the space. Eggplant had the same appetite as before, and he finished a bowl of chicken legs and rice in a short while. As for the eagle, he didn't even finish half of it, and laid down next to the sofa without any energy. Meng Ci was extremely worried after seeing this. Shen Ke, is the eagle sick? Neither of them had ever kept a pet before, and they knew very little about pet-keeping knowledge, so they naturally didn't know what was wrong with the eagle. Meng Ci saw that the eagle didn't eat or drink, and began to think about the reason. Thinking that today's food might not suit the eagle's taste, he took out some more pig's trotters, chicken feet, and other food from the space. However, even after changing the new food, the eagle remained indifferent, and didn't even want to look at it. Chapter 274. Don't worry. The eagle is pregnant. Eggplant, did you bully my wife? Meng Ci couldn't figure out why the eagle suddenly became like this, so he could only slap Eggplant, thinking that he might have been bullied by Eggplant. Awuh! Awuh! Eggplant said that it was innocent, and it didn't know why the wife didn't eat well, and it was also very sad. After all, my wife didn't pay much attention to it during this period of time. Awuh! Eggplant stood up and rubbed against the eagle. Wife, pay attention to me. Xiaoying ignored him and turned over. Eggplant, seeing this, could only whimper and eat the leftovers of his wife in the food bowl. Meng Ci was very angry when he saw Xiaoying was so disappointing. Xiao Ci, don't worry. Shen Ke comforted him. And then, he had a solution. We can go to Captain Lu and ask them. Meng Ci heard this, and his eyes lit up. Captain Lu and his men had been feeding the military dogs, and they probably knew what happened to Xiaoying. So the 2 of them quickly packed up and took Eggplant and Xiaoying out. The ground that was previously trampled tightly is now mostly bumpy, and even in the corners, where no one stepped, there are holes of different sizes. These holes are all caused by insects crawling out. And along the way, Meng Ci occasionally saw an insect like a shell crawling out. Eggplant is careless and not considerate at all. When he saw an insect on the road, he ran over to catch it for fun. But fortunately, with Meng Ci's strict support, Eggplant finally returned to Xiaoying and stuck to his wife. Meng Ci sighed and patted Xiaoying's head to comfort him. Xiaoying, when we go to the military area later, if you like other male dogs, just bring one back. Let Chiezi regret it. Woof woof woof. Xiaoying called out twice in a low voice, as if responding to his master, indicating that he was okay. When Chiezi heard this, his eyes widened, and he turned his head and howled at Meng Ci twice. The master was too much. How could he sow discord? Meng Ci snorted coldly, and didn't look at Chiezi. In Meng Ci's eyes, Chiezi was a scumbag who abandoned his wife and children and only knew how to have fun. Arriving at the gate of the military area, the soldiers guarding the gate were already familiar with Meng Ci and his team, so they let them in directly. After entering, not far away, they saw Xiaoya. Comrade Meng, Comrade Shen. Xiaoya put down what he was doing immediately after seeing Meng Ci and Xiaomoyan, and hurried over. Since Meng Ci brought Xiaomoyan here last time and successfully rescued Lu Chen from the brink of death, Lu Chen's team was full of gratitude to Meng Ci and Xiaomoyan. What's the matter with you guys today? Xiaoya asked with concern. He noticed that both of them looked a little serious, and realized that something important might have happened. Meng Ci said straight to the point. I found that Xiaoying was not in a good mood these 2 days. It couldn't even eat. So we want to know if you have a veterinarian or other people who know how to take care of animals. Ming Xiai added. Xiaoye was very anxious when he heard that Xiaoying was sick. He knew that Xiaoying meant a lot to Ming Xiai, and he was once a member of their team. Yes, I'll take you to find him right away, Xiaoye said hurriedly. He observed the eagle carefully, and saw that its tail was drooping, and its eyes had lost their former spirit, and it looked listless. Xiaoye quickly called 2 soldiers who had no missions to bring a stretcher. However, when the eagle saw the stretcher, it showed strong resistance and was unwilling to get on. Ming Xiai also said that the eagle was not injured, and there was no need to do this. It was just not energetic. But Xiaoye and his men could not do it, and finally guided the eagle to lie on the stretcher, and then came to the place where military dogs were trained, and called a soldier over. Comrade Ming. This is the comrade who is mainly responsible for the safety of military dogs. Ming Xiai shook hands with the man, and then eagerly asked him to help check the condition of the eagle. The soldier readily agreed and immediately began to carefully check the physical condition of the eagle. He first gently opened the eagle's eyes and observed it carefully, then checked the eagle's tongue, and finally gently stroked the eagle's belly with his hand. As the inspection went deeper, his originally serious face gradually relaxed. Comrade Ming, Comrade Shen, don't worry, Xiaoying is not sick, he said in a relaxed tone. However, the next word surprised the two. Xiaoying, it's pregnant. When Ming Xiai and Shen Ke heard this, they couldn't help but widen their eyes, with astonishment on their faces. Since Xiaoying came to them, it has been nearly 2 years, but Xiaoying's belly has never moved. Ming Xiai thought that it might be due to the harsh environment of the end of the world, which caused Xiaoying or Eggplant to be damaged and unable to get pregnant. But now it seems that this is not the case. It is just that the time has not come yet. Ming Xiai hurriedly asked the comrade. After the eagle monster, are there any other precautions? The man told him one by one. After sending the people away, Lu Chen and Xiao Moyan came over from a distance. After seeing Ming Xiai and Shen Ke, both of them were a little surprised. Xiao Ming, Xiao Shen, is there something wrong? Xiao Moyan asked. Xiao Moyan did not plan to come to the military area today, so he did not let Chiazi and others follow. Just now, Lu Chen suddenly came home and said that a military dog pup in the military district had a little problem. Hearing this, Xiao Moyan hurriedly followed. Unexpectedly, he saw Ming Xiai and Shen Ke from a distance. Ming Xiai did not keep it a secret and told them about Xiaoying's pregnancy. Xiao Moyan and Lu Chen were very excited when they heard this. Especially Lu Chen. Comrade Ming, classmate Shen, can you wait for Xiaoying to give birth to the baby and send it to the military district? Don't worry. We will definitely train them into the best military dogs. Ming Xiai heard this and did not agree. After all, Eggplant and Eagle should decide for themselves about the child they have. Captain Lu, it's still early. Besides, the baby born will belong to both Eggplant and Eagle. Whether to keep it with you or give it to you should be decided by them. Although he said so, Ming Xiai felt that Eagle was once a military dog, and it was very likely that he would send his baby to continue to be a military dog. But this was just speculation. Okay. LV Chen did not force it. After all, Eagle and Eggplant were theirs, and they had to agree whether to send them. And Lu Chen was very familiar with military dogs, and he also proposed several tips for raising babies. Because it was said by the comrade just now, Ming Xiai did not listen carefully, but thought about the relationship between Lu Chen and Uncle Qiao. Chapter 275 Giving Birth, the vaccine has been developed. Captain Lu, I have something to tell you. Can I have a word with you? Ming Xiai asked directly. And Lu Chen seemed to have guessed what Ming Xiai was going to ask, and nodded to indicate yes. Giving the Eggplant and the Eagle to Shen Ke, Ming Xiai followed Lu Chen, and came to the easternmost part, where some parallel bars and other fitness equipment were installed. It was rest time, and several soldiers were doing fitness. When he saw Lu Chen coming, he saluted quickly, and then walked away. Ming Xiai didn't like beating around the bush, so he asked directly, Captain Lu, do you have any thoughts about Uncle Qiao? Lu Chen was stunned for a moment by Ming Xi's straightforward words, and then his expression became more serious. Xiao Moyan is indeed very attractive, Lu Chen said bluntly. Ming Xiai didn't expect Lu Chen to say that, and looked at him in surprise. In fact, from the first time, he saw Xiao Moyan at the gate of the Xishan Wild Base. In addition to doubting his identity, Lu Chen also felt that this guy was too weak and incompetent. A grown man is so nervous just to shake hands, not like a man at all. However, as time goes by and they get to know each other more, LV Chen gradually changes his opinion of Xiao Moyan. When Xiao Moyan helps him treat his illness and takes care of the military dog, LV Chen begins to realize the man's inner tenacity and kindness. I don't know when, LV Chen's mind is no longer limited to work affairs, but he often thinks of Xiao Moyan. He begins to find various excuses to invite Xiao Moyan to the military region, hoping to have more opportunities to get close to him. Now, Ming Xi's words made Lu Chen understand that his feelings for Xiao Moyan were not impulsive. He did not feel embarrassed, but was glad that Ming Xi knew Xiao Moyan. Perhaps this was an opportunity to help him. Lu Chen decided to express his feelings to Ming Xi honestly and seek his support. Ming Xi was speechless when he heard Lu Chen's words. He was worried that Uncle Qiao might be hurt. But now, he was asked to help Lu Chen pursue him. Uncle Qiao is very timid. You'd better do it step by step. Otherwise, he will be scared if you tell him about it suddenly, Ming Xi reminded. Although Ming Xi was unwilling to help Lu Chen in his heart, but considering Captain Lu's personality, he knew that he would never give up easily. Instead of letting Lu Chen forcefully pursue Uncle Qiao, it would be better to give some advice, so that Uncle Qiao could at least avoid being hurt. As for the hardships Xiao Moyan had experienced in the past, Ming Xi did not intend to tell Lu Chen. He believed that, if the two of them finally got together, Uncle Qiao would naturally confide his past to Lu Chen. After Ming Xi informed Lu Chen of the situation, they returned to the camp together. A group of puppies were seen circling around Xiao Moyan happily. And Xiao Moyan's face was also filled with an even happier smile. Ming Xi stepped forward, said goodbye to Xiao Moyan, and took Eggplant and Xiaoying back home. Xiaoying was pregnant, so she had to eat a balanced diet, including meat and vegetables. And Eggplant had to be prohibited from jumping on Xiaoying and having fun. A month later, Xiaoying's belly gradually became bigger. Comradely from the military district touched it, and said that Xiaoying was conservatively estimated to be pregnant with 5 puppies. Seeing the eagle's belly getting bigger and bigger, Ming Xi's worries grew day by day. The only thing that made people feel fortunate was that the eagle's appetite was getting better and better. However, in order to control the size of the cub, Ming Xi strictly followed Comrade Li's requirements and controlled the amount of food for the eagle. At this time, Chiazi also realized that his wife was pregnant. So every time he saw his wife eating half full, he would leave his food for Chiazi. When Ming Xi knew about it, he would severely stop it. In order to prevent the eagle from eating Chiazi's food, he even gave Chiazi food in advance, which stopped Chiazi from leaving food for the eagle. 2 days before the birth of the eagle, good news came from the base. The replanted Chinese herbal medicine has matured, and after harvesting, it was put into vaccine research. With the birth of the eagle cub, the first batch of vaccines was put into use. The injection of the vaccine also means that the superpower will disappear, so many superpower users are reluctant to get the injection. This vaccine is actually a serum that can resist the zombie virus. Its function is only to prevent humans from becoming zombies after being bitten by zombies. For superpower users, this does not have much practical significance. After all, they have powerful abilities that can protect themselves from zombie attacks. They don't want to lose their abilities, become ordinary workers again, and live a hard life. The authorities cannot force people to get vaccinated, because this may cause social unrest or even riots. Therefore, the government sends vehicles to publicize every day, hoping that people will voluntarily come to get vaccinated. When Ming Xi learned that the vaccine was successfully developed, he immediately went to the injection site with Shen-Kai to receive the vaccine. Although the novel was not finished when Ming Xi read it, Ming Xi clearly remembered that the author had mentioned in the book that using superpowers is actually consuming people's spiritual power in advance. If superpowers are used too frequently, people's lifespan will be greatly shortened. Ming Xi and Shen-Kai are still young, and they don't want to die too early. In addition, they believe that with their excellent skills, they will not necessarily be at a disadvantage even when facing superpowers. Zheng Yin, Zhang Mingtian, Yun Jingsen, etc. After knowing that Ming Xi chose to inject superpowers, they also considered it and chose to inject the vaccine. The superpowers are like zombies, both are a kind of mutation, and becoming ordinary people is much safer. Oh, woof woof woof. It has been a month since the eagle gave birth. Because the eagle has mutated, its body is particularly large. 2 are white, 1 is pure black, and the remaining 2 are both black and white. There is only 1 black and white puppy. Maybe there was a problem in the eagle's stomach after it came out. Its hind legs were a little shorter than the others, so it walks with a limp. Maybe it is a combination of eggplant and eagle, so it looks like neither wolf nor dog, and its barking sounds like wolf barking at one moment and dog barking at another. 5 puppies. In addition to drinking milk, Ming Xiai also took out the pure milk stored in the space to feed them, so each one is well nourished and chubby. After Zheng Yan knew that Xiaoying had given birth to puppies, he came over every day, touching this one, hugging that one. Xiaowen also came over from time to time, and sighed every time he saw the lame puppy. If I had registered for the vaccine later, I could have cured its leg. Every time he said this, Xiaowen was very upset. Uncle Qiao, its leg is like this since birth, and the supernatural power may not be able to cure it. Ming Xiai comforted. After seeing that the puppy's leg was lame, Ming Xiai took the spring water from the space to soak it every day, but it had no effect. Chapter 276 Big Brother. What are the names of the 5 dogs? Big Brother. What are the names of your 5 puppies? Zheng Yan asked curiously. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, holding the 2 dogs in his arms, Ming Xiai was sitting on the sofa. And after hearing this, he said, the eldest is called Coke. The second is called Sprite. The third is called Beer. The fourth is called Yogurt. And the 5th is called Waha. In fact, Ming Xiai and Shinkei thought it was too troublesome to name them at the beginning, and even wanted to name them from the eldest, the second to the 5th. But later, they felt that this was too perfunctory, so they kept dragging their feet. As a result, the 5 little guys had not been given a formal name even after their full month. Last night, Ming Xiai and Shinkei entered the space, preparing to harvest the vegetables and grains they had planted before. Coincidentally, they also brought the 5 little guys into the space. This was their first time entering this mysterious place, and they were a little reserved at first. But seeing their parents wandering around freely inside, they gradually began to explore this new environment. After Ming Xiai and Shinkei packed up the things on the field, they went to the food storage area to select the ingredients for dinner. Shinkei didn't like to drink all kinds of beverages. If Ming Xiai hadn't forced him to try, he would only choose mineral water. When he saw Shinkei pick up a bottle of mineral water, Ming Xi's eyes suddenly lit up. As if he had an inspiration, he looked at the drinks around him, including cola, Sprite, and beer, and chose 5 as the names of the 5 little ones. When Zheng Yan heard the names of the 5 little ones, his eyes lit up, and his mind instantly thought of the cola, Sprite, and spicy strips he drank in the end times. He tooted his lips, and Zheng Yan's tone was full of sadness. Alas! After the zombies are gone, how long will it take to return to the prosperity before the end of the world? I want to drink Coke, eat fried chicken, and hamburgers. Ming Xiai knew very well that, although he had the so-called God's perspective, because the author's novel was not yet completed, he had no idea when he could return to normal. Therefore, when facing Zheng Yan, he could not give a definite time and answer. However, thinking that there was still a large amount of Coke and Sprite in stock in the space, and he had not even enjoyed half of them, Ming Xiai decided to take action. He secretly took out a small bottle of Coke from the space, and grabbed a handful of dirt to dirty the bottle. Then, he handed the dirty bottle of Coke to Zheng Yan. At this time, Zheng Yan was holding a puppy named Coke in his arms, and he kept muttering something. He seemed to be in some kind of contemplation, and was unaware of what was happening around him. Ah! Brother, am I hallucinating? Coke really turned into Coke. Zheng Yan held Coke in both hands, looking at the small bottle of Coke in front of him, with surprise on his face. After the surprise, there was ecstasy. Seeing that he was reluctant to take the drink, Ming Xiai put the Coke on Zheng Yan's head. Do you want to drink it? If not, I'll take it away. Yes. 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 Zheng Yan quickly let go of the Coke on his legs and caught the Coke on his head. Big brother. Thank you. I love you the most. Zheng Yan realized that it was Ming Xiai who gave him the Coke. So he quickly took it, opened it, and drank 2 gulps. Shinkei, who came back from feeding the rabbits, immediately looked at Zheng Yan with vigilance. What's wrong with this guy? Ming Xiai ignored Zheng Yan's madness and explained lightly, this is what Zhao Jing you gave me before. There are only 2 bottles left. Don't tell anyone after you finish drinking it. Zheng Yan knew very well what the situation was like at Zhao Jingyu's home, so he was not surprised to hear this. Brother, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Zhao Jingyu quickly stretched out his hand and swore. If a third person knows about this, When talking about the third person, Zheng Yan suddenly thought of Shinkei beside him, and quickly changed his words. If a fourth person knows about this, I will be bitten to death by zombies. There was no need to swear. After all, Ming Xiai also knew that Zheng Yan was not a talkative person. Ming Xiai picked up the smallest Waha and sat on the sofa, and then took out a basin of water from the space, and put Waha's legs in it to continue soaking. Zheng Yan still sat on the floor, holding the bottle of Coke in both hands, cherishing it very much. He gently opened it, took a small sip, and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It tastes good." Then he was annoyed in his heart, because he drank it too fast just now, and didn't taste the flavor. He must take the remaining half bottle back, and drink a small sip every day. After knowing Zheng Yan's thoughts, Ming Xiai reminds him, if you don't drink the Coke in time, the gas inside will be gone. By then, it will be no different from sugar water. Zheng Yan is annoyed. Yes, it seems that I haven't had Coke for too long, and I forgot such an important thing. Brother, I'm going back to find the boss. Zheng Yan looked at the Coke in his hand, and planned to go back and give it to the boss to taste. Okay. Ming Xiai nodded. Zheng Yan carefully put the Coke on his legs on the ground, and then quickly hid the Coke bottle in his clothes, and went home sneakily like a thief. Ming Xiai didn't pay attention to Zheng Yan's affairs anymore, although there was still a lot of Coke in the space. He knew that giving a bottle was already a huge risk, and he would never give it again in the future. Shinkei sat there. There were two white puppies beside his legs, the second and fourth. They kept rubbing against his legs. Shinkei had no choice but to reach out and pick up the two dogs, then gently place them on his legs. When the two puppies were placed on Shinkei's legs, they immediately calmed down, each of them humming and wagging their tails at the same time. Shao Xiai, I asked, now you can build a house without going through the official, find people yourself, buy materials yourself. As for the land, you can choose whatever you want. After it's built, you can go to the government to issue the building to apply for the property certificate. In the previous life, Ming Xiai didn't come, and Shinkei didn't reborn. After the zombie era ended, there were only more than 500,000 people left in the entire M city. But in this life, the population of the West Mountain Wild Base alone is 400,000. It can be imagined that the population of the entire M city should be more than 1 million. In just a few years, the population has dropped sharply by 1/10. The once prosperous and bustling M city, with tight land resources and high housing prices, has now lost a lot of population. As long as someone is willing to build a house and settle down, the government will even take the initiative to provide certain assistance and support. Okay. Ming Xiai nodded. Then when we have time, let's choose a place and build a house. Although they will travel around in the future, they are very familiar with M city. It is better to build a house when the prices and labor costs are not high, so that they will have a place to live when they come back. Okay. Shinkei nodded. Chapter 277 Building a House. 5 cubs are missing. Doctor, come and see my brother. 2 months after the vaccine was developed, a group of psychics, who went out to look for zombies and mutant animals, suddenly ran in from outside the base with 2 companions on their backs. At first, the medical staff thought that the 2 people were bitten by zombies and were very scared. Finally, after knowing that there was no zombie, they went forward to check, felt the pulse, looked at the eyes, and found that there was no sign of life. They are dead, said the doctor who was examining them. However, in order to prevent temporary shock or other unexpected situations, they decided to send the 2 to the operating room for a comprehensive examination. After a series of tests and diagnoses, they finally came to the conclusion that both of them had passed away. The cause of death was very simple. Their lives had been exhausted and came to an end. The companions of the 2 superpowers were incredulous about this result. After all, they were only in their 30s, in their prime. How could they suddenly die? Afterwards, after further examination by professionals, it was found that the functions of all their organs were seriously declining, especially the brain, which was even more aged than the elderly in their 70s and 80s. When these people heard that brain failure was the most serious, some of the smart ones immediately thought of superpowers. So they all underwent various examinations, and found that although they were in their 30s, their body functions were already at the level of 50 or 60 years old. And the more frequently they used their superpowers, the faster their bodies aged. Then the doctor roughly understood the situation, and knew that the 2 people who died were because they had the most powerful superpowers, and were always at the forefront. After understanding the situation, the doctors came to the conclusion that using superpowers was overdrawing life in advance. These people rushed to the hospital, got vaccinated, and lived honestly by hard labor in the future. After all, life is more important than anything else. This matter gradually spread among the various superpowers in the base. But not everyone believed it. Some superpowers still firmly believed that their superpowers would not cause any impact on the body, so they continued to use their superpowers unscrupulously. However, some people were very cautious. They had previously noticed that their physical condition seemed to be worse than before, so they went to the hospital to get vaccinated without hesitation. Unexpectedly, in less than a month, some people with special abilities died inexplicably in the base. After a detailed examination, it was found that the cause of death of these people was also due to the failure of body functions. This amazing fact made more people with special abilities begin to accept the previous statement that the indiscriminate use of special abilities would overdraw body functions in advance, and they flocked to the hospital for vaccination. However, some people with special abilities still chose to ignore this reality. They believed that life was short, and they should enjoy the present moment to the fullest, and resolutely refused to be vaccinated. After all, everyone has their own lifestyle and values, and the authorities cannot force them to get vaccinated. When Zheng Yan and others learned about this, they immediately ran to pay tribute to Meng Xiai, and gave him a thumbs up and praised him. Brother is really awesome. Meng Xiai didn't react much to this. After all, he was busy building a house now. The place has been chosen, not far from the base. Meng Xiai had asked Lu Chen before, and he knew that the future development of the city would be centered on the base and expand in several directions around it. The place Meng Xiai chose now only takes a few minutes to drive to the base, and there are not many people around. It is very quiet. When they learned that Meng Xiai and his team were going to build a house, Lin Jun and Zheng Yan made a lot of efforts, and cheap and good bricks, steel bars, and other building materials were pulled here by truckloads. Since the land here is unowned, Meng Xiai directly divided 1,000 square meters of land and planned to build a 2-story villa, covering an area of about 200 square meters. The place is large, and it is much more comfortable to live in, and it can meet daily life needs. In addition to building houses, we also need to prepare a nest for the rabbits. We also built some flower beds and other things. When we have time in the future, we can plant some flowers and plants in the yard. Of course, we can leave a piece of open space behind the yard to grow vegetables. After the place is planned, the next step is to invest in construction. With the help of Lin Jun and Zheng Yan, Meng Xiai does not have to worry at all. He only needs to come and check the progress every 3 or 5 days. Building a house now is not as simple as before the end of the world. At that time, there were all kinds of tools available. Now it can only be done slowly by manpower, so it takes longer. The 5 puppies grew bigger and bigger, and began to run up and down the stairs at home, barking, and being very annoying. Meng Xiai looked at Eggplant, Eagle, and the 5 little ones. Their appetites were getting bigger and bigger. Meng Xiai felt that he and Shinkei were working so hard, and they might not be able to keep them well. Ding ding ding. At noon that day, Meng Xiai, who had just taken a nap, yawned, added food to several food bowls, and poured some extra pure milk for the 5 puppies. The security door was open. In the past, whenever there was a knock on the door, Eggplant would be the first to rush up. But this time, Meng Xiai knocked several times, but there was no sign of Eggplant and the others. Shinkei came down from upstairs and also felt it was strange. He went outside to check the situation. He found that there were not many of them in the yard, and the gate was tightly closed. Could it be that Eggplant and Xiongying took a few of them out to play? Meng Xiai thought of the time when Xiongying had been trying to take a few of the little ones out. However, because the 5 were only born for more than 40 days, Meng Xiai was afraid that they would be caught and eaten by the supernatural. So he strictly refused to take them out. But he didn't expect that this time. A few of them disappeared without a trace. After putting the rice and milk into the space, the 2 of them hurried out to look for traces. During this time, they also met Zheng Yan. After Zheng Yan knew that the dog door had disappeared, he hurriedly asked around. Because he was a trader, he knew many people. So he knew the news in a short time. I heard that a white dog and a black dog were indeed seen running to the west with a few puppies. Zheng Yan ran over and told Meng Xiai and others what he knew. The west? The military district is in the west. Could it be that Xiaoying took a few of them to the military district? In this way, the three of them asked along the way and arrived at the military district. After seeing Meng Xiai and the others, the gatekeeper checked Zheng Yan's identity and let them in. Comrade, have you seen 2 big dogs and 5 small dogs? Meng Xiai did not rush in, but asked several soldiers about Xiaoying and the others. When the soldier heard this, he smiled and nodded, yes. Comrade Meng, you are talking about Xiaoying and the others. Right. They came half an hour ago. Meng Xiai heard this and felt relieved. Thank you, comrade. Chapter 278 Woof Woof, don't follow us. After entering the military area, Meng Xiai and his companions walked towards the place where military dogs were trained on weekdays. As expected, the three of them saw 2 eggplants and eagles sitting on the ground. And on the balance beams, obstacles, and other places nearby, there were little dogs wobbling on them. Xiaoya saw Meng Xiai and Shen Ke, and walked over with a happy smile on her face. Comrade Meng, Comrade Shen, you are here. Then he rubbed his hands, and hesitated to speak. Meng Xiai ignored them, and walked towards Chiezi and the others. After all, no one would be happy if they took their son away. Xiaoya did not think Meng Xiai and the others were rude. Instead, she coughed and followed them. Comrade Meng, you don't know how talented these puppies are. After they were brought here by Xiaoying and Chiezi, they climbed onto the balance beam without us telling them. They are much better than our puppies, who are only a few months older and have been trained for more than 10 days. If they can stay in the army, they will definitely be able to contribute more to the country. Comrade Meng, if you don't believe me, I'll let them show you. Don't worry. There are always people watching around us, and we will never let them have any accidents. Several trainers on the side nodded and promised that they would never get hurt. Some people even secretly said that the third beer has strong search and rescue capabilities, and the eldest cola has strong tracking capabilities. Meng Xiai did not speak. When the eggplant on the side saw the master coming, it hurried over. Awoo! Awoo! Master, I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat? Then the eggplant began to smell the 2 people's smells, wanting to see if the master brought it food. The eagle knew that he was in the wrong, and did not dare to get close to Meng Xiai at all, but only looked at him frequently. Meng Xiai still had a stern face. Although the 2 animals were powerful, there were superpowers everywhere in the base. Moreover, they brought a few small ones with them. What if one accidentally caught them? Meng Xi's worry was not unreasonable, because on the way here, there were a few superpowers who wanted to eat dog meat. But fortunately, some of them had seen Eggplant and the others swaggering into the military area before, so they told the people with bad intentions. The military area now has a pivotal position in the base. If these dogs were eaten, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. Hearing this, those people could only let a few go. Coke, Sprite, a few dogs, wobbled around in various training programs, but soon adapted and became more and more skilled. Seeing this, Meng Xiai had to sigh that the little ones were indeed suitable to be military dogs. At this time, Lu Chen came back from the office area. He had heard that the eagle's cubs were extremely talented in being military dogs. When he came over, seeing Meng Xi's face, he knew that he was not very willing to send the cubs to the army, so he planned to retreat to advance. Xiao Meng, Xiao Shen. Since Lu Chen told Meng Xiai that he was going to confess to Qiao Moyan, he called Meng Xiai and the others the same way as Qiao Moyan. Captain Lu. Meng Xiai didn't even look at Lu Chen. Lu Chen squatted down, touched the eagle, and thought it did a good job today. Of course, Lu Chen couldn't say that openly. He talked about all sorts of things and didn't say that he wanted to keep the 5 dogs. Meng Xiai was a little surprised. He remembered that this man had always wanted to train the 5 little dogs into military dogs. Why did he suddenly change his mind? But since Lu Chen didn't mention it, Meng Xiai didn't plan to ask more. Coke, Sprite. After playing in the yard for a while, the puppies' stomachs began to growl. They jumped and staggered, and ran towards Eggplant and Eagle. The little guys rubbed Eagle affectionately, trying to attract its attention. Since the puppies have been born for more than 40 days, Meng Xiai is gradually reducing their dependence on breast milk. But considering that they are outdoors today, she decided to let them drink a little. However, Eagle's milk is not enough, and can only meet the needs of 5 puppies to be half full. After drinking milk, the 5 little ones ran to Meng Xiai and Shen Ke again, and formed a circle around them. Usually, the 2 of them were responsible for feeding these little guys. So when they were hungry, the first thing they thought of was Meng Xiai and Shen Ke. But this time, no matter how they called, they didn't get any food. So, they all looked at Ming Xiai and Shinkei with their big watery eyes, revealing innocence and confusion. Xiaoya knew that the two were hungry. So he spoke. Comrade Ming, Student Shin, it's time for dinner now. Why don't you stay here and try our food? Xiaoya was thinking, what if a few of them were conquered by the army's food, and took the initiative to stay in the military area, then Ming Xiai would not force them to take them away. Ming Xiai didn't want to stay here, because he was a soft-hearted person. What if he had to let them stay here for a meal? No need, our meal is ready at home. Speaking of this, Ming Xiai turned around and left. Shinkei kicked Eggplant, telling it to follow him quickly, and not to make Dad angry again. Eggplant understood what he meant and followed him. The eagle did not hesitate, and turned around and walked away. Ming Xiai glanced back, and saw a few little ones following behind him. And he was satisfied. Woof! Woof! After walking only 2 steps, Ming Xiai heard the eagle's cry. He turned his head, and saw that the eagle had been calling out to the 5 little ones. When the 5 little ones heard the sound, they immediately raised their heads, barking and howling, and their short legs still followed their mother tenaciously. However, the eagle was not satisfied with the behavior of the dogs. It turned around and took 2 steps forward. When it saw 2 puppies following it, it turned back and barked. The 5 little dogs seemed to understand what the eagle meant, and had no choice but to retreat. Ming Xiai looked at everything that happened in front of him and understood it. I'm afraid the eagle had already had his own ideas, and wanted to take these little guys to the military area to make them qualified military dogs. Woof woof woof. A woof! A woof! The 5 little dogs hung their tails, and looked at the eagle reluctantly. The eagle turned around and left without any hesitation. After hearing the calls, Eggplant stayed where it was, looked at his wife, looked at his children, and whimpered twice. The 5 little ones heard the sound, and ran over with their short legs. Halfway through the run, they were scolded by the eagle with a few woofs. Although the 5 little ones wanted to be with their father, they did not dare to go against the eagle's wishes, and could only look at Eggplant with their eyes wide open. Then, the eagle shouted at Eggplant again. Eggplant was scolded so much that he hung his head and felt wronged. He did not dare to refute at all. Chapter 279 Going Out, the town is in danger. Comrade Ming. Xiaoya was very distressed when he saw the eagles like this. Take them back. Although he wanted to keep the eagles in the military area, he didn't want to see the eagles end up separated from their families. Ming Xiai didn't agree, but waited for the eagle to come over. Woof woof. The eagle walked to Ming Xi's side and barked twice. It was not as fierce as it was to Eggplant and Coke, but it was a little more guilty and determined. Ming Xiai squatted down and touched the eagle's head. Are you sure you want to leave them here? If you really want to leave them here, you won't be able to visit them casually in the future. They may even face death, because of various tasks they will perform in the future. Are you sure? Ming Xiai believed that the eagle could understand what he said. Besides, Kaylai and the others were the eagle's children. It was up to the eagle to decide whether to keep or go. Woof! The eagle hesitated for a long time, and finally called out with a firm voice, expressing his thoughts. Okay. Ming Xiai touched the eagle's head, then stood up and instructed, say goodbye to them. Woof! The eagle called and walked over. When the 5 little ones saw their mother coming, they hesitated for a while, and finally rushed over. A woof! A woof! Woof woof woof! The 5 little ones' voices were very aggrieved. Ming Xiai couldn't bear to watch, and saw Eggplant standing in front of him, and kicked it in the butt. Why are you staying here instead of saying goodbye to the children? When Eggplant heard this, she hurried over, and kept nudging the children and his wife with her mouth, and even rolled on the ground, obviously not wanting to be separated from the children. However, the eagle insisted, barking to keep the children. Woof woof woof. The eagle's voice became stern, as if expressing its determination. Eggplant looked at the eagle helplessly, and then looked at the children, with reluctance in his eyes. In the end, Eggplant failed to persuade his wife, and could only agree to leave the children here. Zheng Yan had been following Ming Xiai and Shinkei, and he had no reason to object to the treatment of the 5 little ones. But when he really wanted to leave, Zheng Yan ran up directly, and held each of them in his arms, feeling their soft fur, and his heart was full of reluctance. Woo 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 cola, cola. You have to live well in the military area. Woo 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 Sprite, Sprite. You have to protect yourself, do you know? When it was Wahaha's turn, Zheng Yan held it, and reminded Lu Qin and the others. Wahaha's legs are a little lame. Do you want to stay too? Zheng Yan looked at them expectantly, wanting to hear the word no from them, so that he could take Waha back. Yes. Lu Chen nodded. Xiaoya began to explain. Although Waha's legs are a little lame, it has a very sensitive sense of smell. Don't worry, we will give it targeted training, and will never let it have any chance of getting hurt. Meng Xiai knew that Lu Chen and the others liked them very much, so he believed that they would take care of them. When Zheng Yan heard this, he patted Waha's head and said, "You better keep your promise, or I'll make you pay with my life. Also, if they retire in the future, you must find me." Zheng Yan instructed. Xiaoya and the others said they understood. Zheng Yan hugged them one by one, patted their heads, scratched their chins, as if he wanted to engrave them in his mind, and finally left with a look back every few steps. Meng Xiai and Shen Ke didn't even look back. Meng Xiai even wondered if he was the grandfather of Coke or Zheng Yan, and why his reaction was so much stronger than theirs. After leaving the military area, the 3 men and 2 dogs walked back, each of them feeling extremely depressed. However, they had already decided to leave a few behind, so they had to look forward. Meng Xiai took the food for the 5 little ones from the space and divided it into 3 portions. 1 for Eggplant, 1 for Xiaoying, and then pushed it in front of the 2. The 2 were more depressed than each other, and only ate 2 bites of the food, and did not want to eat anymore. Meng Xiai also felt uncomfortable for a moment, and the noisy sound of the past made him miss it now. Therefore, in order to prevent the 2 people, the wolf and the dog, from falling into a state of sadness and depression, Meng Xiai suggested driving out to relax. After all, everyone has been vaccinated, so even if they encounter zombies, they don't have to worry about being bitten and mutated. Shen Ke agreed with this. So, they decided to set off the next day. After the off-road vehicle drove out for more than 3 hours, Meng Xiai saw that there was no one around. So he took out the RV. Shen Ke was responsible for driving, and Meng Xiai prepared lunch in the kitchen. This time, they did not have a clear destination, and they would go wherever the RV could pass. On the 3rd day, they arrived at a small town. The town was sandwiched between mountains on both sides, with only 400 or 500 meters of flat land in the middle. The town was built on the mountain. There were only a few high-rise buildings in the town, and the rest of the buildings were basically 1 or 2 stories high. At the entrance of this ancient town, there was a huge stone tablet. Although the surrounding environment was a bit dilapidated, it still stood tenaciously. A closer look revealed that it was engraved with the 4 characters Xuanhe ancient town. It was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Meng Xiai noticed that near the right, there was a large platform made of stones, which could be used for vehicles to pass. So he suggested that they could drive the car there and park it, and rest here tonight. Hearing this, Eggplant and Eagle in the car immediately became excited. They couldn't wait to get out of the car to explore this place. Shen Ke agreed with Meng Xi's proposal, and started driving the car towards the big platform. Bang! As soon as the car stopped, a gunshot was fired at their RV. Meng Xiai and Shen Ke had already prepared and had already laid down. After so long in the apocalypse, the sharpness of the 2 people, the wolf and the dog, had long been trained. There was no way to go in front, and the back was quietly blocked by someone. So they could only find this flat land, and with the cover of the RV, they could hide in the house opposite. But they didn't expect that the other party had a gun. "Let's go!" Shen Ke opened the door of the RV, and Meng Xiai, Shen Ke, and the 2 hours rushed out at a very fast speed, and then entered a room. There was a blackboard in front, and a shabby classroom in the middle. I think this place was a school before the end of the world. People inside? Come out quickly. At this time, a voice similar to a loudspeaker suddenly came from outside. Leave the RV and other things on your body, and you can leave safely. Otherwise, if we catch you, you will leave your life here. Meng Xiai and Shen Ke heard this, and ignored it, but looked around to see if there was any place to hide. Chapter 280. Boss, these 2 men are for you. Shen Ke, let's surrender. Outside the window is a river bank more than 10 meters high. If you choose to jump from here, you will definitely die. Although there are things in the space that can allow them to slide down safely, after they go down, there is no suitable place to hide, and the RV outside can't retract the space. Meng Xiai thought for a while, and thought of a more reliable way. Shen Ke trusts Meng Xiai very much, so he nodded and said, "Okay." The 2 threw their weapons into the space, and then raised their hands and walked out. The group of people on the opposite side, at this time, had already come over with 2 long guns. A man standing in the middle, holding a loudspeaker, put down the loudspeaker with satisfaction after seeing them come out obediently. Not bad, very self-aware. I'll tell the big boss to spare your lives. The man waved his hand, letting the 2 younger brothers get on the RV to check the situation. After a while, the 2 men got off the RV. Each of them was very happy. Second boss, they have a lot of food in the car, and a box of gold. One of the younger brothers brought down a box, opened it, and placed it in front of the second boss. The things in the RV, Meng Ci deliberately took some rice soaked by the flood, flour with worms, and some other food. Of course, he also put a box of gold he got in the tunnel, just to prevent running into other people on the road, and to be curious about how they survived without anything. When the second in command heard this, his face was very excited, but in order to prevent Meng Ci and the others from cheating, he threw a ball of fire in front of Meng Ci and the others. Seeing that the 2 people reacted normally, and they had not used any supernatural powers since entering the town. Aren't you superpowers? The second in command asked directly. No, Meng Ci answered. The second in command didn't believe it when he heard it. He ordered people to take 2 chains and lock the 2's hands behind their backs. Only then did he feel relieved. After that, he saw Eggplant and Eagle and swallowed his saliva. Let's go. Take them back. Eat dog meat today, and human flesh tomorrow. Yes. Meng Ci and Shinkei followed behind them obediently, showing that they didn't dare to resist, and followed them all the way to their base camp. Looking at the abandoned police station in front of him, Meng Ci was surprised. No wonder he had a gun in his hand. It turned out that he had occupied the police station. Meng Ci and his friends were taken to a room, and 2 guards stood at the door. Here, Meng Ci and his friends met the boss of these people. And what surprised Meng Ci was that this boss was actually a girl. She sat in front of a shabby desk, looking at Meng Ci and his friends with indifference. In her office, there were all kinds of gold, silver, jade, countless jewelry, and even many antiques. When she saw Meng Ci and Shinkei, her eyes lit up and a greedy smile appeared on her face. After such a long time in the apocalypse, she had never seen such a handsome man. The second in command saw the expression of the first in command, and of course knew what she was thinking. So he immediately complimented her. First in command, these 2 men are good looking, aren't they? We caught them specially for you. When the first in command heard this, he stood up and patted the second in command on the shoulder and praised, not bad. Not bad. Today's supplies, I will give you 1/3. Although the first in command was a girl, she was only a little over 1.6 meters tall, but her body was very strong, especially her thick arms, which were thicker than Meng Ci's arms. This big boss used to be a boxer before the end of the world, and she also won the National Boxing Championship. Since the rainstorm began, she has relied on her excellent skills to rob a lot of supplies. In the subsequent end of the world, she showed amazing fighting power, and could resist 10 enemies alone. So she gradually won over a group of younger brothers. When her superpowers awakened, her superpowers became the most powerful in the team. However, because she was engaged in boxing before the end of the world, she had a strong body and dark skin, so not many men would be interested in her. But after the end of the world, as her abilities continued to grow, many men with average abilities offered themselves to her. The big boss had many choices, and he chose those handsome men. Now seeing Meng Ci and Shinkei, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. It has been so long since the end of the world, it is rare to meet such fair and tender men. When the second in command saw this, he hurriedly asked people to clean up the house for the big boss and enter the bridal chamber. Meng Ci and Shinkei looked at each other, with a lot of disdain in their eyes. Meng Ci looked around, and there were quite a lot of people in the room, and Meng Ci wanted to take out the grenade and blow them up directly. But seeing the things in the room, Meng Ci hesitated again. These were all antiques, representing a kind of civilization. After a while, Meng Ci and Shinkei were pushed out of the office. When they came to the middle yard, some people with good intentions were already beating gongs and drums, saying that they would send the wife of the chieftain into the bridal chamber. While those people were cheering, Meng Ci secretly observed the situation around him. After Eggplant and the Eagle were caught, they disappeared. No sound was heard from them when they came out. It seemed that they were taken to a far place. Meng Ci was a little worried, wondering how they were doing now. Looking up and down, there were about 20 people in the yard, and only the head of the family was a woman. Meng Ci moved closer to Shinkei, and when Shinkei looked over, he signaled with his eyes. Shin Ci immediately understood what he meant, turned around, and reached out to grab the corner of Meng Ci's clothes. Meng Ci also took out a grenade from the space, and then took advantage of everyone's inattention, opened it, and threw it on the ground. At that moment, Meng Ci immediately pulled Shinkei into the space. Although Meng Ci reacted quickly, the grenade exploded even faster. The moment the two entered the space, they were hit by the impact of the grenade. Standing on the ground in the space, the two felt a burning sensation and staggered. It took them 2 or 3 minutes to recover from the dizziness. Meng Ci and Shinkei helped each other get rid of the chains on their bodies, and they left the space. The grenade was very powerful. Even if no one in the yard died, they would be disabled. So they hurried out, and they could catch all the fish that slipped through the net. After they left the space, they heard a series of wailing. These people were superpowers, because the crystal stones behind their heads were not dug out. They would not die even if they lost their arms and legs. It was just that zombies could not feel pain, so they would not scream. These superpowers were still human beings, so they would scream in pain when they were blown up by grenades. Chapter 281 Son. Come and call him Big Brother. Fuck. Ghost. The people on the ground who were howling like ghosts and wolves were all scared to death when they saw Meng Ci and the others suddenly appear. The former big boss was left with only half of his body. His head and face were blown beyond recognition, lying there with blood dripping. The second in command was in a more horrible situation. His brain and body had been completely separated. It was only because of the existence of the crystal that his eyes were still blinking. After hearing this, the other people all turned their eyes to Meng Ci and the others, although they did not see them in person. The fact that Meng Ci and Shinkei were unharmed made them believe that all this was true. Please, save me. However, Meng Ci and Shinkei ignored the cries of these people. They each held a long knife and began to dig out the crystal stones behind their heads ruthlessly. These people were not completely dead yet, and could clearly feel the things behind their heads being dug out. However, 2/3 of them died directly after the crystal stones were dug out because of serious injuries. The remaining 1/3 of the people were crying and howling in pain on the ground. Meng Ci and Shinkei were kind-hearted and helped them get a ride. The houses in the yard had been destroyed by the grenades and were about to fall to the ground. Woof woof woof. A woof. A woof. At this time, Eggplant and Eagle ran in from outside. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw the corpses all over the ground and immediately showed a look of disgust. Eggplant and Eagle jumped at the same time, easily passed over the corpses of those people, and came to Meng Ci and Shinkei. They sniffed around, and only breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that their master was not injured. It turned out that just now, the two men of the boss took Eggplant and Eagle to an open space not far away, and planned to set up a pot to scald them to death. However, the two superpowers did not know the true strength of Eggplant and Eagle, and simply tied them aside, and then went to do other things. At this moment, Eggplant and Eagle saw the opportunity, suddenly pounced on the two men, and instantly pressed them to the ground. The two had killed too many superpowers, so before they could react, they skillfully dug out the crystals on the back of their heads. After dealing with these people, Meng Ci and Shinkei searched everywhere in the dilapidated police station. Antiques, gold, silver and jade, food, guns. After Meng Ci found some useful things, he put them all into his own space. After everything was collected, Meng Ci and Shinkei came to the place where the RV was placed. Although the items in the RV had been looted, those people did not have time to drive the car away. This location is very suitable for living, and the dangerous people have been eliminated. So Meng Ci did not hesitate to put the RV into the space, and re-entered the space with Shinkei and the two pets, since there is still plenty of time in the space. Now that the apocalypse is over, there is no need to hoard time anymore. So they decided to go into the space to rest tonight. After dinner, the two people, the wolf and the dog, went to rest. The next morning, the two woke up and continued to wander around. After more than a month of playing, the two people, the wolf and the dog, gradually adapted to life without the 5 little ones, and then returned to the Kishi mountain base. The house in the place chosen by Meng Ci and his team was almost completed. A 3-meter fence and a 2-meter iron net were standard. A solar panel and a power storage device were also installed on the roof. As long as there was sunshine, there was no need to worry about the house running out of electricity. After staying in the Shishan Wild base for more than 20 days, the house was completed. The end of the world had just ended. And there was no latex paint or anything like that. Floor tiles and other things were very rare. So they just used sand, cement, and other things to paint the walls and the ground. Nowadays, the base still uses points for exchange. So the house in Mengxi's base was sold for 50,000 points. Then Mengxi and Shinkei brought eggplants, eagles, and some things from the space, and moved to a new home. Moving to a new home brought a new atmosphere. Mengxi and Shinkei invited friends to warm up the house. Liang Xiu, Xiao Jingyu, Zheng Yan, Lin Jun, Zhang Mingtian's family, Yun Jingsen, and 6 others. There were too many people, so they just took out a barbecue stove and everyone just barbecued in the yard. Pork, beef, mutton, rabbit meat, eggplant, potatoes. Now the breeding industry in the base is developing better and better. Not only that, there are also many private breeding farms. As time went by, food resources became more and more abundant, and people's living standards were significantly improved. Therefore, when Mengxi took these things out of the space, he did not worry about arousing others' suspicion or noticing abnormalities. After all, the supply of materials is no longer as tight as it was in the past. When these people came, they did not come empty-handed, but brought some gifts. Brother, after Zheng Yan came, he rushed to Mengxi's side as soon as possible. Brother, when will you visit Coke, Sprite, and the others again? Be sure to take me with you when you go. I miss them so much. After Mengxi and Shinkei came back, they immediately went to visit the 5 little ones in the military district. After more than a month of training, Coke and the others were much more energetic and more flexible. After seeing the 2 grandfathers and the parents, they hurried over. When they parted, Mengxi and Shinkei began to feel reluctant to leave. So after leaving, Mengxi decided to visit the 5 little ones less in the future. Seeing Zheng Yan like this, he said perfunctorily, Okay, I'll tell you next time. Zheng Yan felt relieved when he heard this. Then Zhang Mingtian and Huang Ji came with 2 children. Zhang Mingtian's child is now about 3 years old, and is being led by Huang Junyu. He is very beautiful. Brother, this is my child, Zhang Jianguo. Son, call me brother. Zhang Mingtian picked up Zhang Jianguo and asked him to greet Mengxi. Mengxi was embarrassed. What's wrong with this guy? He is so persistent in letting his child call him brother. Is he really going his own way? Besides, Zhang Jianguo is a good name. Brother. Zhang Jianguo was not shy, and he called him brother directly. Seeing that Mengxi was good looking, he stretched out his hand for him to hold. Mengxi had never held a child before, and he couldn't bear to refuse, so he could only hold the child with his hands unskilled. Brother, you are good looking, Zhang Jianguo said, and then he hugged Mengxi's head and kissed him on the face. Not to mention whether Shinkei was jealous. When Eggplant and Eagle saw someone approaching their owner, they ran over one by one, whimpering, Awoo! Let go of the owner. But both knew their limits, so they wouldn't hurt the child. Chapter 282 Dinner. Eggplant suddenly fainted. Son, come to daddy. Zhang Mingtian looked at his son helplessly. He never thought that his son would be so bold and dare to kiss Mengxi, whom he had only met twice. He hurriedly stepped forward and took Zhang Jianguo from Mengxi's arms, for fear that the jealous Shinkei would hit the child. After all, with Shinkei's violent temper after jealousy, anything could happen. After Zhang Jianguo was held in his father's arms, his little head was still turning, his eyes were always on Mengxi, and he kept shouting, Brother, hug me. Zhang Mingtian walked back with his son in his arms, while comforting him. Okay, son, let's go find mom. After that, he took Zhang Jianguo away from the scene. Seeing Zhang Jianguo leave, Shinkei couldn't help but snorted, expressing his dissatisfaction. Mengxi didn't care about these. He knew that in recent times, Shinkei has become more and more jealous. Just then, Yun Jingsen and several other teachers came in, carrying a big bag in their hands, walked straight to Mengxi, and then handed the bag to him. Teacher Yun, Teacher Mao, Teacher Fang. Mengxi called them one by one. Congratulations. Thank you, teacher. Putting down his things, Mengxi came over to greet several teachers. Only then did he know that the school in the base was finally being used. However, because books were scarce, The official only set up elementary school courses. Yun Jingsen and others were teachers before the end of the world, so it was easier to apply for a new job now. Wan Qing had been taught the corresponding courses by them, so he had solid knowledge. So he was also successfully hired and became a colleague with Yun Jingsen and others. Meng Xiai nodded. Being a teacher is much better than working in the fields. At this time, Zhao Jingyu suddenly ran in from outside. After seeing Meng Xiai, he rushed over. Meng Xiai, that Lu Chen is so shameless. You only invited a few of us today, but Lu Chen had to follow you. At this time, Liang Xiu also came in from outside. After hearing what Zhao Jingyu said, he patted his head. Watch your words. Zhao Jingyu was not convinced. Lu Chen doesn't pay attention to his behavior. Why should I pay attention to my words? Because there are only a few zombies left, and the main problem for the government at present is to grow crops and build homes, and this matter was handed over to the former deputy mayor. As for LV Chen, he was mainly responsible for daily patrols and maintaining public order. These tasks only required his subordinates to do them, so LV Chen was free. This free time gave him more time to stay by Chiao Moyan's side. I think LV Chen has bad intentions. I wanted Uncle Chiao to be my father, but LV Chen started chasing Uncle Chiao. Doesn't he want to be my mother? Look at his burly figure. How does he look like my mother? Zhao Jingyu counted on his fingers and began to talk about how beautiful his mother was. Liang Xiu grabbed Zhao Jingyu's hand and sighed. Zhao Jingyu, I'm only 1 year younger than Chiao Moyan. Do you have to recognize him as your father? Zhao Jingyu blinked. We can discuss our own issues. After that, Meng Xiai and Liang Xiu fell silent at the same time. Uncle Chiao. Zhao Jingyu didn't know how shocking his words were. Because in his opinion, Chiao Moyan was very good to him, and he wanted to be filial to Chiao Moyan like an old father. After seeing Chiao Moyan coming in, Zhao Jingyu hurriedly ran up. But when he saw Lu Chen on the side, he didn't say hello, and dragged Chiao Moyan to Zhang Mingtian. Uncle Chiao, do you know what this kid's name is? His name is Zhang Wu. Isn't it meaningful? If I could change my name, I'd call myself Jianjun. Zhao Jianjun, hee. It is meaningful, but Chiao Moyan thinks it's not as good as his original name. When Lu Chen saw Chiao Moyan being taken away, he sighed helplessly. He didn't know most of the people in the room, so he could only come to Meng Xiai. Comrade Ming, Comrade Shen, Captain Lu. But when he saw the epaulets on his shoulders had changed, he quickly changed his words. No, I should call you Major Lu now. Meng Xiai was not surprised that Lu Chen was promoted so quickly. After all, according to the various effects that Lu Chen has made in the last few years, if he is not only 35 or 36 years old, I am afraid that the lieutenant colonel would have done it. Although Meng Xiai left M City for a while, he has been asking about Lu Chen and Chiao Moyan since he came back. After knowing that Lu Chen did not make a rash confession or do other extraordinary things, Meng Xiai changed his mind and felt that Lu Chen might not be a good destination for Uncle Chiao. Of course, whether the two of them should be together depends on what Uncle Chiao thinks. Although Lu Chen is not a petty person, he is in a high position after all, and Zhao Jingyu just offended him a little. Liang Xiu felt that he still needed to explain for Zhao Jingyu. Lu Chen glanced at Liang Xiu and recalled this person in his mind. He had heard the deputy mayor mention before, saying that Liang Xiu was very capable and would be entrusted with important tasks in the future, since they might become colleagues in the future. And Zhao Jingyu did not do anything too extreme. He naturally would not take it to heart. Everyone gathered together. Some were responsible for lighting the fire, and some were responsible for cutting the meat skewers. Because there were so many people, everyone tasted the fragrant skewers in just half an hour. Yun Jingsen and others brought rice wine, and Zhao Jingyu took out a bottle of red wine that Zhao Ting had treasured for a long time from the basement. While eating delicious skewers and tasting fine wine, everyone felt very happy. After dinner, Ming Xiai and Shen Kai sent the people away, and then they began to clean up the yard. Eggplant and Xiongning had been fed a lot of barbecue just now, but their stomachs were not very full. So Ming Xiai took out some food from the space and filled half a bowl of food for the two to eat. Unexpectedly, Eggplant's legs softened while eating, and his head fell into the food bowl. Eggplant? Ming Xiai was startled and ran over quickly. Shen Kai was also startled and followed closely. What's going on? The two came closer and quickly picked up Eggplant. It was breathing smoothly and snoring, and Ming Xiai could smell alcohol when he got closer. This? Ming Xiai looked dazed. Shen Kai was the same. He looked at Ming Xiai and asked in confusion, Did it drink? Meng Xi's mouth twitched, and he immediately turned his head to look at the basin of rice wine on the table beside him, and was speechless for a moment. There was not even a grain of rice in the basin now. Only Eggplant could lick the basin so clean. I don't know if the wolf would be allergic or have other problems after drinking alcohol. I wanted to throw this guy on the ground, but I couldn't bear it. I moved him to the nest with Shinkei and checked from time to time to see if he would die of alcohol allergy. Seeing that Eggplant's breathing was always comfortable, Meng Xi felt relieved. Chapter 283 ending. Walking towards the sun all the way. There is oil, we have dug up oil. That day, Meng Xi and Shinkei drove to the item exchange point to exchange 10 liters of oil. As a result, as soon as they went out, they saw a man running in from outside excitedly. Meng Xi and Shinkei did not rush to leave, but stood aside and listened to the whole process. Although the zombies disappeared, the mutant plants and animals were also slowly disappearing, but the previously polluted river water had not recovered. So in order to find a suitable water source, the authorities set their sights on underground. The well digger that Lin Jun and his friends knew before has become a hot commodity. And when they were drilling today, after digging only over 100 meters, they saw liquid flowing out from the ground. They thought it was water, but when they got close, they were surprised to find that the gushing liquid was black, and it smelled like oil. They continued to dig deeper, and saw streams of black liquid coming out from the ground. They were stunned, and couldn't believe what they saw. After all, usually, you have to dig thousands of meters deep to find oil, but now, after digging only over 100 meters, they have already seen oil. For people who are trying to rebuild their homes, this oil is undoubtedly a timely help. Many mechanical equipment relies on gasoline and diesel as a power source. Now with a local supply of oil, it will greatly speed up the construction process. However, the surprises are not limited to this. Just a few days after the discovery of oil, someone dug up coal. Not only that, good news came from other parts of the earth, and various resources emerged like mushrooms after rain. Perhaps nature realized that it had brought great disasters to mankind in the past few years, and now began to generously provide various precious non-renewable resources to help mankind get back on its feet. With these resources, the speed of home construction is getting faster and faster. In order to enhance the communication between the bases, the government recruited workers to clean and repair the highways and other major roads. In this way, half a year passed, just when everyone was enjoying their lives. In June, the temperature kept rising and reached 60 degrees. The residents were miserable, and some even cried, fearing that the end of the world would come again. Meng Xi and Shinkei stayed at home, turned on the air conditioner, and put a lot of ice cubes around the house. When they saw the temperature was so high, they began to doubt whether the end of the world would not end. The high temperature lasted for 3 days, and then disappeared in an instant, and the temperature returned to about 35 degrees. Without any warning, it began to rain heavily. The sudden heavy rain affected many people's mood, fearing that the heavy rain would hit again. Fortunately, after 24 hours, the heavy rain disappeared, and everything seemed to calm down. The residents lived cautiously for several days, thinking that there would be another natural disaster. Unexpectedly, they waited for good news from the authorities. The river water that was previously detected by the authorities as being polluted has now been tested again and is fine. So residents no longer need to be cautious about using water.as for the soil that needed to be treated before. Agronomy experts have developed suitable fertilizers to improve the soil, and things are really getting better this time. Shinkei's space disappeared long ago when he was vaccinated. Luckily, Shinkei put everything inside with Meng Xi in advance. And Meng Xi's space has nothing to do with supernatural powers, so it did not disappear. Now everything is calm. Meng Xi and Shinkei entered the space, checking the things inside. Not even 1/3 of the seeds of various crops have been used, and the various antiques, solar panels, instrument parts and other things that were previously stockpiled are no longer used. So Meng Xi planned to find a time to secretly take it out. It would be better to leave it to the authorities than to leave it in the space to gather dust. Shinkei had no objection. So late at night, Meng Xi and Shinkei came to the base, put the things directly not far from the military area in the dark, and made a noise so that they could see the things in time, and then left without knowing it. After hearing the noise, the soldiers on guard took a flashlight to check. After seeing the pile of things, they were very surprised. At first, they thought that they didn't rest well while on guard, so they were dazzled. After confirming that the things really existed, they hurriedly called other people. The soldiers who were resting were called up, and then began to move things. When moving things, they roughly classified them, and then moved them to the corresponding places. The next day, the news spread to other people in the base. After knowing this, the residents thought of the oil and coal that had come out before, and thought that it was God's mercy. Some people who believed in ghosts and gods knelt down and kowtowed to thank God. Ming Ci and Shen Ke, who actually handed over the things, were still sleeping at this time. After all, packing up the space requires personal effort. The two of them worked most of the night, and then rushed out to put the things away. More than 2 months later, Ming Ci and Shen Ke heard that many obstacles on the road had been cleared, and there were indeed vehicles from other bases coming over in the past few days. So Ming Ci and Shen Ke planned to go out for a walk. Unexpectedly, before they started to act, Lu Chen suddenly ran over, and seeing his cheerful face, Ming Ci immediately realized that he was not with Uncle Qiao. Sure enough, the first thing Lu Chen said after seeing Ming Ci and the others was, "Comrade Ming. Comrade Shen. Mo Yin and I are together." Ming Ci was not surprised by this result and congratulated him. Lu Chen touched his head and said thank you. Then he said that he planned to build a house next to Ming Ci and the others, and then live with Qiao Mo Yin. After all, Qiao Mo Yin is introverted and is familiar with Ming Ci and the others. Living together can also take care of each other. Hearing this, Ming Ci's eyes lit up. After all, he planned to go out with Shen Ke, and if Qiao Moyan and his friends lived nearby, they could help look after them. Then he gave a key to his house to Lu Chen, asking them to help look after them. After Lu Chen knew that Ming Ci and his friends were going out to play, in addition to recruiting them, he also said that he would definitely take Qiao Moyan out for a walk in the future. As for Qiao Moyan's past in the tunnel, Lu Chen didn't say anything, and Ming Ci didn't ask. But he knew that according to Qiao Moyan's personality, he would definitely tell about it. As Ming Ci expected, when Lu Chen confessed his love, Qiao Moyan realized his feelings. He didn't want to lie to others, nor did he want to lie to himself. So he told him what happened in the tunnel. Lu Chen didn't think it was a big deal, but felt very distressed. The reason why he didn't tell Ming Ci and the others was that he felt it was unnecessary. He believed that with his own strength, he would definitely help Qiao Moyan get out of the haze. 5 days later, Lu Chen started buying materials and going through the procedures to build a house. And Ming Ci and Shen Ke were ready to go. One morning, they drove an off-road vehicle to travel around the mountains and rivers. "Shen Ke, let's go!" "Okay." "Woo! Woof!"